Hi guys, welcome to our first Python tutorial. I kind of just want to go over some basic ideas with you, try to follow along as best you can. So the first thing you want to do is basically just open up your file. So I have a file here called Intro to Python I'm going to open. You can create your .py file in any editor that you wish. It's kind of up to you. So to start, I'm going to talk about the concept of a variable. Well, first I guess I should talk about comments. So comments are text that you write for yourself that the computer doesn't read. So they begin with this pound sign or hashtag, however you want to call it. So I'm going to be writing a lot of comments so that you can read the code later and make sense out of it. Writing good comments is a good coding practice because if you open up a document in a few months, you'll most likely not really remember every detail, but if you write yourself comments, you'll be able to jog your memory a little bit. Okay, so let's start. A variable is just like a variable in algebra. It stores something that the computer can call over and over again. So it stores something and can be called over and over. So I'll give you an example. We can say valence electrons equals 5, for example. So if we ever want to call, so how do I explain? Okay, we're going to be inputting this into a function later on, so it'll make a little more sense. Another cool thing about variables is that later on in the program, if you want to change the value of them, you can do that while you're working with it. So I'll give an example of that. So let's say variables can change value throughout the program. So basically you can tell the computer to do this. So let's create a variable called counter, and I'll set it equal to 0. And don't worry about this loop structure for now, but the point is I want counter to count the number of times it goes through a loop for some reason. So I'll say for I in range 0 to 10, for example. I'll say counter equals counter plus 1, and then I'll print out the counter while it's going through this loop, and then I'll print out counter at the end of the loop. So after the loop is finished, print counter again. Okay, so basically what's happening here, you can see, here's my cursor. So we're setting this variable counter equal to 0, and we're saying we want to run through this loop 10 times. So each time we go through the loop, we want to increase the value of counter by 1, and we want to print this out every time we go through the loop as well. By the time we're finished going through the loop, we're going to see what our value of counter is one more time. So let's run it. So once again, to run a program, you do Python 3, and then the name of the program, which in this case is Intro to Python. And as you can see, here's our counter going through the loop 10 times, and then this is our final value of counter, which is 10. So let's look at our program again. So how else can we use variables? As I've said, we can define functions that take variables as arguments. So you saw this in the Python exercise that I showed you previously. So let's just create a simple function. All functions are defined the same way. They start with this def, and then the name of the function, you can make it any name you want. So let's call mine circle. Let's call it circle area. And it's going to take arguments. It's going to take one argument known as radius. So the inputs to a function are known as arguments. They're also kind of like variables because you can change their value. So let's have this function return the area of a circle. So we know the area of a circle is pi, so let's just do 3.14 for now, times the radius squared, so just radius times radius. So now that we've defined that function, let's call the function. So we can define a variable r, and let's say r is equal to 5. The units don't really matter right now. And we will have it print out the area of the circle. And we have to call our function, so we'll call circle area r. And let's see what we get. Oh, okay, so it's running through our counter once again, but it's saying the area of the circle is 78.5, which means it took the value that we gave to r, which was 5, and it evaluated this expression here. So the cool thing about this is that, much like we did with the counter above, we can just call this function over and over again. So let's say, let's call the function many times. We can do something like this. So we can say for I in range 0 to 10, once again, let's say area is equal to the circle area, and for an argument it's going to take I. So it's going to evaluate I for 0 through 9 basically. And then let's just print out the area. So we'll say area. So we're declaring this variable area, storing it as the value of the function that we evaluated, and then we're going to print that out to the screen every time we run through this loop. I'm going to comment out some of this stuff so our screen looks a little bit neater. So I'm going to comment out these print statements. And let's run this thing. Yeah, so you can see every time we go through the loop, it's evaluating the area of our circle. And we can just use this as many times as we want. So this is obviously a little bit easier than typing it into a calculator for every single value. Of course, this doesn't have to be integers, so I can say I'm going to print out the circle area, and I'll say that the radius is 5.5 this time. So once again, I'll comment this out so we can just see. Yeah, so I ran that, and it's 94.985. So hopefully this feature is going to be useful to you, because we're going to use it a little bit later in the course.